Hi there, and welcome to another interview today. Slightly different, with a slightly different starting question. I was looking at a newspaper called The Light, which I recommend thoroughly if you're in the UK. It's free and it's full of great information. Anyway, there was an article that really caught my eye. And at the end, well, blow me, it was written by Ben Hunt, who I happened to do Tuesday's question and answer in Carnivore Team GB. And I messaged Ben and said, I didn't know you were a fabulous writer, Ben. So I'm going to ask him to talk about that and some other things. So, hey, Ben, why do you think that a 90-day challenge is such a good thing?
Wow. Hi, Stephen. Thanks for asking me on. And thank you for your kind words, first of all. Why is a 90-day challenge a good thing? So just some background then. I set myself a 90-day strict carnivore challenge starting on January the 1st, 2024. And the reason why I did that is because I coach people in diet and health and wellness and that kind of thing, because I run with my friend Phil Escott. We run the Big Fat Challenge, which is kind of built around a 90-day idea. But here's the thing, because I came into this via a very different route. I was never sick. I was never had a ravaged gut and raging autoimmune issues or anything like that, that I had to heal. So I got into this just as an innocent bystander who wandered into the wrong meeting kind of thing and got involved. And I've been kind of dirty carnivore for a few years, but I'd never done the really strict thing. And I remember several times I would say that I was in a way kind of envious of Phil for having had crippling autoimmune arthritis 10 years ago that he had to heal, because he had to go really clean and really strict. Anthony Chaffee has said that the real benefits come, 95% of the benefits come when you cut out the last 5% of the plants. But for me, it was always, I'll have a coffee, this, or a pizza, that, or also until New Year, I was drinking alcohol almost on a nightly basis as well. So I'd never really experienced actually what it was like to live a pure carnivore lifestyle. And I was just curious, because you need to be curious in this day and age. So I set myself a 90-day challenge, which is incidentally what we tend to advise people who've got health issues. We say, okay, and you're probably very much the same with your coaching clients, do at least 30 days, preferably 90 days, where you cut it all the way back to beef, lamb, salt water, if you can, maybe some oily fish or whatever, and then reintroduce to see what it is that upsets your body, what it is that works with your body, works for you, and that kind of thing. But just do that kind of reset. So I set myself the challenge of doing 90 days from January the 1st of strict carnivore. Now, was I successful in that? No, I wasn't. I had a couple of binge outs. I didn't touch alcohol throughout that time. I also gave up smoking as well, which is interesting. However, the experience of those 90 days proved to be utterly transformative. And the other interesting thing as well is that I did a video diary every day for 90 days. So I'll be out walking the dogs or whatever. I'd record a video on my phone, and I uploaded it to our Substack. So that's bigfat.substack.com. Big Fat Substack. You just type it in. But Stephen, it blew me away. Actually, the impact on my life from that. And I think part of it is just setting yourself a challenge and committing to a challenge, because it makes you, it shows you how powerful your word is and your integrity. If you somebody that when you say you will do something, or when you say something will happen, it jolly well happens. Or are you somebody that 5 minutes later will start making excuses why you couldn't do it, this, that, and the other? So I thought just on a very basic level of personal integrity, it was extremely powerful. But more than that, I think the insight into the the addictions that I had, of which alcohol, even though I was drinking typically like 5 pints a night, on every night of the week, kind of equivalent, that was not the most powerful. That was not the most vicious grip that I was under, because it turned out that sugar, wheat, and caffeine were far stronger in the end. But it's the insights into the way that my own mind works and the way that our society works, and just how these legalized drugs, how why they're pushed on us, is it was life-changing, mate.
Yeah. Just to be honest with you, when I first met you face to face at PHC in Sheffield in 2023, I was actually quite gobsmacked at your laissez-faire attitude to smoking and drinking. I was quite surprised. I think you were complaining of some joint pain, and I mentioned maybe you should give up the drinking, and it sort of over your head, I think.
Yeah.
But so that's really interesting. There's a phrase I really want to pick up on. There's quite a lot I want to ask you, actually. But you said quite glibly, I gave up smoking, which was interesting. So what was the interesting part of giving up smoking?
How easy it was, actually. No. But my marriage also kind of came to an end in this January just gone as well. And the thing is that I was in a habit of drinking every night because my wife drank every night, and she was also quite a committed smoker, and so because I'd smoked on and off, when I was younger, I thought I was just having 3 or 4 a day and whatever, and we tend to think that I mean, look, if you are chemically addicted to alcohol, it is an absolute bitch to get off, and you really just do need to stay clean. I'm very familiar with it. My mother was an alcoholic. I'm familiar with AA and the 12-step program. Fortunately, I wasn't chemically addicted in that way. It was just a powerful habit for me at that point. But I went 90 days without an alcoholic drink, which finished at the War on Health, second War on Health conference where you spoke brilliantly, may I add, Easter in the Peak District. And then on that 90th night, I thought, I'll go down the pub. And I thought, I'll have a couple of pints. It was very good beer as well. And then somebody else insisted on buying me a third pint. And I remember walking back to the college going, okay, I feel tipsy, but I don't need this. I am not in any way enhanced by this experience, by imbibing alcohol. It was really, really fascinating.
It is. And that was the next thing I was going to ask you, because you mentioned food was the thing that surprised you, the addictive quality. And you said something interesting. I will paraphrase in the article that sort of the food was shielding you from your emotions, your true emotions. I'd like you to just sort of explain that a bit more, if you don't mind.
Yeah, this is really one of the core insights that came out of that challenge, because what I realized was that I was feeling more. When I wasn't smoking, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't on the coffee, I wasn't having sugar, and I was finding, one day I might be craving chocolates. Now we will talk about the cravings as well, because that definitely changes over 90 days. But sometimes I find myself just really craving a pack of croissants and jam, or hot chocolate, or a big bar of chocolate, or a coffee, or something like that. And what I realized was that it was because I was feeling stuff. And why did I want the food stuff? And it was because it would stop me feeling. It would stop me feeling my feelings. And this kind of dopamine anticipation and this little, rush of pleasure that we get, And particularly from, alcohol is very obvious. You think, oh, my day's done now. I'm going to switch off. I'm going to kick back. I'm going to drink, and then just my brain doesn't have to work anymore. But I really do feel like these things are what's the anesthetic? They're literally they stop you experiencing the reality of life. And I think that sugar is a huge one in that. I think sugar, I think caffeine, they all kind of just gloss over or paper over what's actually going on with something that just isn't real. When you get sugar, or people have energy drinks or coffee, they think it gives them energy. It doesn't give you energy. What you're doing is you're borrowing energy from later on in the day that has to be repaid with interest. And I know people, it drives, I'm absolutely gobsmacked when I used to drop my wife's girls off at school, and I'd see children of 11, 12 years old walking up the road to school in the morning, chugging a 500ml can of Monster or Relentless or one of these energy drinks, thinking they have no idea what's going on with their bodies. And you go into a shop now. I remember at PHC last year where you were as well, when we met for the first time. There was a tiny little corner shop on the corner, and you walked in there, they've got an entire fridge full of energy drinks. And it was about 1/20th of the surface area of the shop was devoted to energy drinks, because it's that mad. But yeah, it's the stopping feeling. It's the anesthesis.
Numbing.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
The numbing of those emotions. And I think that's one of the most fascinating things I've heard in the last sort of 5 years of carnivore coaching, when you said that, because that gets right to the nub of it. Absolutely. And I think your own personal journey, and this might sound like I'm diverging, but it's actually pointing out how you operate. If you're listening to this and you've got cravings and you can't kick the habit, Ben's experience is different to my experience, for instance. Now, I'm actually much more visual because of my hearing problems. And I did a carnivore cookbook, with 50 recipes. It's an ebook, and everyone, it's lovely, it's nice and successful. But a lot of people said, I want it as a paperback. Now, I've just gone through rewriting to make it a paperback because it's not easily transferable, and updating the pictures and making them better pictures and all that. Now, and all that food and all those memories of cooking all that food, I was supposed to fast the last 3 days, and I've not been able to. Now, I'm pretty good at fasting. I can fast. And it just shows that it's really deep. And I was like, wow, I can remember how great that was when we cooked that, and that was fabulous. And I was saying to my wife, Jane, that fabulous cottage pie we did, which was 100% carnivore, your brilliant new invention recipe. I really fancy that tonight. So it can hit you in different ways. So like I say, for me, it's very visual. So for you, it was sort of more of an emotional cloak. And that's the thing with the 90-day challenge, going back to your big fat challenge, which also I think is transferable to life as well. I think when you do that, you learn skills to take with you elsewhere. But anyway, your big fat challenge, I'd imagine you have a lot of people coming to talk to you with different things, and you offer different solutions, I'm imagining. So would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's really interesting, when you get a group of people. And honestly, our challenge tends to be at least 80% middle-aged women. For some reason, I think that's my hunch is that because this is a group who can be bothered and motivated to make positive changes in their own life. Anyway, so the biggest addictions and the strongest addictions that we find that people struggle to deal with the most are chocolate and coffee in our group. Alcohol's not really an issue at all, but it's chocolate. It's that treat. And coffee is possibly number one. It's hard to tell. It's hard to separate them by a nose. But people who, and there's lots of carnivores love their coffee, and they say, I can't live without my coffee. I cannot start the day without my coffee. Well, we all know that's BS, because you're not going to die without your coffee, and you will start your day. It's just unfamiliar. And I know, Ken Berry says he has his coffee every day. Lots of people do. But it's a really, really insidious drug. But you know what? I think the conclusion that I came to, Stephen, of looking at all of this, is that I think for many people, why would you want to stop feeling? Why would you want to keep running back to the comfort, the numbing comfort of these legal drugs, which is what they are? Sugar is undoubtedly a drug. Sugar and wheat, we know how they affect the brain. They affect the brain in a similar way to cocaine and morphine. But I think that what a lot of us are trying to do, what I was certainly trying to do, and why I was running away from feeling, is that I was worried that once I stripped away all of those crutches, or what I perceived as supports, that I wouldn't like what I found. And I wouldn't actually feel the real me without the artificial get up and go of the coffee in the morning, or the sugar rush, or the Dutch courage from the alcohol. Isn't somebody that I would like, and might not be somebody that I thought deserved love, quite honestly.
And what was the result when you did the 90-day challenge and you did get rid of all those things? Did you see yourself differently, or did other people see you differently?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. So in terms of the timeline, I found that between about 25 and 30 days, the main cravings had all gone. Alcohol went very quickly, and tobacco went very quickly. It was the sugar and the coffee and wheat that hung around the longest, and I still get those ones as well. And I remember there's a guy on our coaching group who said, because this is really interesting. Oh my goodness! In the first 2 weeks, one of my favorite things to do was to fantasize about the incredible binge that I was going to have on day 91. I was planning it. I was thinking, I'm going to get chocolate, I'm going to get croissants, I'm going to melt the chocolate into the croissants, I'm going to dip them in more chocolate, I'm going to have beer, I'm going to have, pizza, until it comes out my ears. And this guy said to me, when you get to 90 days, you're not going to want any of that. I went, nonsense. I got to 90 days, I had 3 pints and went, I can't be bothered. The following night, I had a couple of scotches. Same thing. Really can't be bothered. And what I've had alcohol maybe twice since then, in the last 2 months, and it's the same thing. And
aren't you happier?
I'm far happier. I'm far happier without the alcohol, and far happier without the wheat addiction. I mean, and this is the thing. I've gone back to, now that I've said it to myself, okay, I'm no longer on a strict regime. I haven't put my word to maintain any particular level of dietary discipline. So, like the other day, we were at a festival and there was a box of chocolate biscuits out on the side, and I picked one up and scoffed it, and it was like, that's all right. But I'm just not compelled anymore. Not compelled at all to munch on any of these things. It's a very different, qualitatively very different experience of life, and I would encourage everyone to do it. And I think what's beautiful about this is that I was saying to myself at the start, I'm going to do these 90 days, or at least I'm going to attempt these 90 days, and then at the end of 90 days, I will have a choice. Because at the beginning of it, I didn't have a choice, because I didn't know how it felt to be clean and carnivore. But the shock result for me was not that it was the carnivorous stuff. Yeah, it's about getting rid of the stuff. It's not as we say this in our coaching. It's not that meat has magical properties, or meat and fat have magical properties. They're not magic. It's the other crap that you're not having. It's freeing yourself from that makes the difference. And so what I realized at the end of 90 days is I do now have a choice, and it's a very real and clear choice. And here's the thing. And again, I keep coming back to our coaching, but we say to people all the time, you will have the pizza or the donuts or the coffee or the dark chocolate, right? As long as your perception of your enjoyment of life and you on that thing is more appealing than your perception of your enjoyment of life without that thing. After 90 days, I promise you, I got to a point where the thought of me with a pizza in my mouth was just so much less appealing than the thought of me having had a pound of beef mince, you know, because I just now push on with life. My energy is level and stable. My emotions are stable. My mental health is absolutely clear. And anybody who's experienced depression, anxiety, stress, and stuff like that in their life, this is the first thing that you should do.
Yeah, I really like that. The perception change is better without this stuff than with it. And once you get that's brilliant, Ben, to sum that up as a sort of mantra, which I really like. I think perception is actually underrated. There's many things that are nothing to do with food that are underrated. You know, goal setting and motivation, your reason why you're doing, how to deal with friends and family, all those sort of things. Which is one of the things that I think we do cover in our Tuesday question and answer thing with the Carnivore Team GB. And I've been in on a couple of your Big Fat Challenge meetings, and you talk to the members there. I think perception is really a really great word, actually, because there are many things we are told are fantastic, and you're saturated with these adverts. You're brainwashed, literally, to think that life is going to be better. Jerry Seinfeld, one of my favourite stand-up comedians, used to do a thing about, I think it was Coca-Cola, or anyway, one of those sort of drinks. And he said, you see them on the screen, and there's all these athletic boys and girls, and that they're playing volleyball, and they've got Coke, and you're sitting in your flat, with one sock, and you're in your pajamas, and you're thinking, well, maybe if I get Coke, my life will be like that. And it is the perception, of course. I know I'm being a bit sort of basic about it, but it is how you perceive these things. And I think with the coffee, I have Swiss water decaf coffee because I like the ritual. Which I've said, full transparency, I say it to everybody, even if I'm coaching them and they're trying to get off coffee. I say, that's me, because I like the ritual. And also, if I don't do that, my choices are even worse. But I can stop it. And that's the thing. It's that informed choice, knowing that you can stop, or you're not going to need 6 cups because you've had 1. And I think it's the control, it's the choice. Is the key to this, because many people, like I say, they give up the coffee in the morning, which has actually set their day up well, or decaf. I don't really agree with the caffeinated coffee at all. And they'll say, yeah, when I didn't have the coffee, I just went off the rails. So sometimes you make a compromise for a bit, but you're absolutely right. The cleaner you can do it, the stricter you can do it. And I'm sorry, I don't normally do a long bit when I've got a guest, but I do want to say this because we have similar audiences. If you think 95% carnivore is going to make you 95% brilliant or optimal or thriving, and you go 100% carnivore, it's going to be an extra 5%. It's not. It's more than an extra 5%. It is incredible when you cut out all of the stuff that isn't animal-based. It does make a huge difference. But you can only then, once you've done that, make the decision, do I want to be like this? Like Chafee is pretty strict, I think Sean Baker's pretty strict, and some people aren't. Because you mentioned right at the beginning that you did dirty carnivore. So what's dirty carnivore for people that don't know?
Oh, that was if I fancied 4 croissants with jam, if I had a real craving for it, I would go down to Aldi and I'd bring back 4 croissants with jam and I'd eat them up and I'd scoff them down. So I was carnivore 3 out of 4 meals kind of thing. Or if I went walking with my mate and we stopped at a pub, I'd have I'd have the burger and chips, even the seed oil fried chips, and 10 pints each.
Would you do that now?
No, because the chips just look like poison to me now. I might have a burger in a bun, but the big thing is that I would listen and watch very carefully to what my body was saying to me afterwards. But no, there's no part of me that wants to sit and have 10 pints of beer. It's
yeah.
but it's the truth now that my new reality is that I feel better sober than I do drunk. Whereas before, the appeal of being drunk was higher than the appeal of not. So it's not that I've grown a sense of virtue or, massive. This isn't about discipline. This is not about self-control. I am not sitting here exercising self-control by not being drunk right now. It's simply better. But there's only one way to realize that, which is to do it for yourself.
Yeah, and then it's a no-brainer. Why would you do something that's worse? I mean, it is a no-brainer. You don't need discipline. And I think that's one of the things I try to get across to people is the penny will drop, however you want to word it. There'll be an epiphany. There will be a light bulb moment, and it will start to make sense. And yeah, it's difficult in the first couple of weeks. It's very difficult when your friends and family think that you're going to kill yourself. All these well-meaning people putting their, 2 pence in. And also, I think education is what you guys are very good at, Phil, and yourself. You snuck in there about the seed oils. Jane's a Pilates instructor. She came back today, and a couple of them were saying, we'll go and have a McDonald's. I really like their chips. And Jane said, you do know they're not just potatoes. There's 18 ingredients or something in there. And they were like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And she said, well, they're not actually just potatoes that are cut into a chip shape. And I think that's the other thing. People don't really realise what they're eating. So I think, you've got a couple of books that point these things out, and you're really big into, the food companies and how they mislead people. But that does help, definitely, doesn't it? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about your views on food production and what's being hidden and ingredients, or is it too late in the day?
I would imagine that your audience knows a good chunk of what I would say anyway, but my view is that, we know that at least 70% now of what people in these developed world eat is ultra-processed food, which basically comes from 5 ingredients: soy, corn, wheat, sugar, and seed oils, reconstituted into unique shapes that can be patented, but they have virtually no nutritional value. Virtually zero nutritional value, and they are loaded with huge excesses of crap that you don't need, particularly 2 main micronutrients, which is omega-6 fats and sugar, which breaks down to glucose and fructose, all of which are toxic to the human body in anything above very small amounts. So you are literally just poisoning yourself. Most of this food, I go through the supermarket now, Stephen, and I look around. I've got some very bad habits, but one of the least objectionable habits in the supermarket is I'll go around going, that's not food, that's not food, that's not food, that's not food. But I do it in my own mind. Slightly more objectionable is when I see somebody who's clearly obese, and then I look down at their contents of their trolley, and then I look back at the individual, and that's just force of habit. Because I don't believe in fat shaming anybody, and I honestly don't believe that that it's their fault either. I think that the system that we've all been raised in is set up to encourage us to eat what is not good for us, and that's a simple fact.
Yeah, there's 2 things I want to add to that then, because you could look in a supermarket and think, right, if this is the health food aisle, what is every other aisle? And normally the health food aisle isn't even healthy. And the other thing is, there's well-meaning, maybe they have a monetized sort of motive, people putting out brilliant things on social media which lack context. I saw a dietitian the other day holding a bit of bread, and on a plate there was 2 teaspoons of sugar. Said, oh, these people talking about low carb. this bread's only got this amount of sugar. And you pointed to this, and it didn't look much, 2 teaspoons. Firstly, I don't know where you found that bread, because normally it's more than 2 teaspoons, but let's accept that's 2 teaspoons is right. Now, that's a good bit of Instagram, and he held up a banana, and I think, it did the same thing. Now, my gripe with that is he didn't have a saucer and 5 litres of blood and 1 teaspoon of sugar. Because if you put it in that context, this is what the body wants, this 1 teaspoon of sugar here. And here's the blood, 5 litres, it needs that 1 teaspoon. Oh, look at this bread. It's twice as much as your body needs. But people don't do that. So the average person will scroll at that and look at the bread and think, oh, yeah, that's not much sugar. What are people talking about? Because they lack the context. And also they're very smug, a lot of the dietitians at the moment, which I don't understand. So I think that it's very misleading out there.
Yeah, and then, of course, the problem with the bread is you're not just going to sit there and put 1 slice of dry white bread into your face. You're going to wipe margarine on it, which is toxic in its own right, and you're going to have 6 of those slices, and then there'll be marmalade or Nutella or some other crap on top of it as well. And we know this, and we know that it's the combination of fat and carbohydrate in the same mouthful that makes it hyper palatable, and you can just sit and stuff that into your face until the cows come home.
Yeah, we're in danger here of getting into the Randall cycle and getting too techie, and I'm not going to do that today. So the last thing is, I suppose, to wrap up and leave for you, is the Big Fat Challenge. What can people do? What do you offer? And how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so if you've tried keto, you've tried carnivore, or you're just on a regular diet and you've somehow found your way to Stephen's channel, we offer it's a 90-day initial program, and we have 4 one-hour Zoom coaching calls every week at different times of day, depending on where you are in the world. So you have people in Canada, America, Australia, even. On there, it's a lovely little community, but to me, I think the main thing, and like we've said, you don't want to be relying on willpower, and also something that I think is very, very important to me that I just wanted to add as well is that we really don't want people ever to feel bad about themselves. You don't set yourself a particular bar and then feel like you've failed or you're bad because you've done X, Y, or Z. It's really important that you don't do that, and that's extremely hard to do on your own. So don't feel like you have to be on your own. There's coaches out there, or there's coaching groups out there like the Big Fat Challenge. Find what works for you, because I think I would have struggled to do that if I didn't have a community of partners and people around me to hold me accountable as well, and that I could go and just share my daily experiences with. And also if you're interested in this, then check out bigfat.substack.com and go through my 90 short video diaries as well, because they're very illuminating.